Despite a tough loss in Week 6, Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan is not on the hot seat. I'll explain on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Brian Callahan should not be on the hot seat, and anybody saying that he is has no clue what they're talking about. Also, we got to talk about what the real problem with the Tennessee Titans offense is, and it's the quarterback, and Brian Callahan is kind of telling you himself. Also, Brian Callahan talked on Monday about L'Jarius Sneed, the right tackle situation. I'm going to get into all of that. Before I do, thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. With that being said, make sure that you throw a thumbs up on the video, throw a Titan up down in the chat. We got to talk about this because, first off, let me just say, I more than anyone yesterday was blaming Brian Callahan. I said it on my instant reaction video that the number one person to blame for Sunday's loss was Brian Callahan. All right, no doubt about that. But at the same time, looking at a long view, Brian Callahan should not be on the hot seat. Brian Callahan should not be fired like other people in the fan base are saying. That is absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And quite honestly, it's incredibly reactionary. I'm mad. The Titans lost. I got to say something really hasty. Brian Callahan should be fired. And I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. Look at what's going on this season. Just look at it. You look at week 1. All right. The Tennessee Titans are in a great position to beat the Bears. They have the punt blocked. Not only that, but Will Levis makes one of the most mind-numbing turnovers we'll ever see with the flick 6 on the sideline. You go into week 2. The Tennessee Titans in a great position to beat the New York Jets. What happens? A punt block. What happens? Will Levis does the underhanded toss to Tajay Spears to fumble in the red zone. Jeffrey Simmons hits Aaron Rodgers in the face and gives the Jets a touchdown on the very next play. Is that Brian Callahan's fault? I mean, the punt block, you could do that. You could say the 2 punt blocks, he's the one who hired Colt Anderson, and Colt Anderson is still employed by the Titans. So I guess if you want to do that, you could do that. But we all sit here and say that Will Levis is making some of the dumbest decisions we have ever made. The pick 6 against the Packers that totally changes that game and puts the Packers up by 10. Like, are these Brian Callahan mistakes that Will Levis is a turnover machine and make some of the dumbest turnovers that we've seen in recent NFL history? Is that Brian Callahan's fault? To me, it's just insane to say that. All right, you go to this game against the Colts. Yes, I admitted Brian Callahan deserves most of the blame. He is number 1 on the blame rankings for that game. But the other games that the Titans have lost, they aren't because Brian Callahan is doing a bad job. You look at any of the analytics, the Titans are middle of the road in explosiveness on offense. How is it possible that with this bad of a passing offense, the Titans are middle of the road in explosive plays on offense? How is that possible? Because Brian Callahan is scheming things up. I did the Tic Tac 4-pack on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel where I break down the 4 best plays from the week for the Titans. And the first touchdown the Titans got was set up deliberately by Brian Callahan's play calling. He set up the outside screen, and then threw the fake screen into the fade route to Nicholas Westbrook-Akine, and it was a perfect wide open touchdown. Not only that, but the draw call on 3rd and 19, A great play call by Brian Callahan, and it led to the Titans' other touchdown on the day. The Titans, without a passing game whatsoever, have still been able to run the ball consistently. You look back to last year, the Titans weren't able to run the ball or pass the ball. Now at least they're able to have a good running game in most games. And I would also point out to you that Brian Callahan, with a backup quarterback, despite a Will Levis boneheaded interception against Miami, was able to break the 30-point curse. And you could say, like I have said, oh, Miami was a JV team. Miami's awful. Well, Miami the next week beat the Patriots with the same JV team. And the Titans played the Panthers last year. The Titans played other terrible football teams last year and still weren't able to score anywhere close to 30 points. Brian Callahan has not been perfect. Brian Callahan has been far from perfect this year. He deserves his fair share of criticism. But to act like Brian Callahan is the main problem for the Titans this year, or that he should be fired 5 games into his tenure, or that he's even on the hot seat, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Do you watch the tape? Let me ask you that. If you do watch the tape, then you would see there are wide receivers open on the Tic Tac Titans film channel and on my social medias on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. I posted all 8 of Calvin Ridley's targets in the game. And as a lot of you have pointed out, Calvin Ridley was either open and didn't get the ball on time. There were other people wide open on those plays, and the ball got forced to Calvin Ridley. I mean, watch the tape here. Brian Callahan is scheming up a good offense. The reality is, the bigger issues for the Titans are that the offensive line is still not that great. And by the way, the last 2 games, the Titans' offensive line has been much improved, mostly because Brian Callahan is scheming up ways to help them, and they're able to run the football. So the Titans have lost 3 games by 1 score, despite Will Levis leading the league in turnovers. The defense has been good. Great hire, Denard Wilson by Brian Callahan. The offensive line is starting to improve. Bill Callahan, Brian Callahan's big addition. The wide receivers are open. They're getting at least league average separation. The Titans are middle of the road in explosive plays on offense without any passing game. The offensive line isn't great. The offense is still functioning. The problem is right in front of you, whether you want to see it or not. And that problem is Will Levis. We have to admit what is right in front of us. Will Levis is the biggest problem with the Tennessee Titans offense, period. And if you listen to Brian Callahan on Monday at his press conference, he was trying to tell you without telling you. So we're going to go over what Brian Callahan had to say, not only about the offense, but about L'Jarius Sneed's performance and then the right tackle position as well. Before we do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Hey, Titans fans, yes, Titans fans, I am talking to you. You can start the second quarter of the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Not only that, but when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place all your bets. FanDuel is truly an all-encompassing hub of football information. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And if you want to throw $5 on the Buffalo Bills money line this weekend, I think that's a pretty good place to start. But make sure that you go to America's #1 sportsbook. It's FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to play daily fantasy sports. That's why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. I love playing on Prize Picks. It makes it super simple. It's super fun. So again, you pick 2 to 6 players. Think Justin Jefferson, more or less than 83.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 250.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, more or less than 91.5 receiving yards. Saquon Barkley, more or less than 65.5 rushing yards. Again, it's just more or less. That's all you do. Make sure you download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Titans fans, we talked about why Brian Callahan deserves his fair share of blame, but people calling for his job are completely out of line and missing the big picture here. Now I want to talk about what I think the real problem is with the Titans, and it's clearly Will Levis at quarterback. That is the reality that we are facing here. I want to go over some Brian Callahan quotes so that we can read between the lines here of what Brian Callahan is trying to tell us. Before I do, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. But I just want to go over some stuff from Brian Callahan's press conference because, I mean, he is telling you what's going on here. He is the head coach of the team. He's got to do it in a certain way. But if you're listening, he's telling you. So he was asked about the game plan, why it was so conservative. He said, obviously, there is a conservative game plan style. I knew we were going to be able to run the ball well. I thought we did for the most part. Through 3 quarters, that game was about what I thought it would look like. Our defense was playing well. We were running the ball. 2 different 17-play drives, scored off a turnover, playing the game in a way I thought was good enough to win through that point. Obviously, didn't get it done. Got to find a way to finish in the 4th quarter. That has sort of been our issue over the course of the season so far in these tight games. We haven't done enough on offense to go win a game. You got to score more than 17 points. You try to get at least 24. That's going to put you in a pretty good position. We haven't gotten that. Every week is different, but I would certainly like to be a lot better in the passing game than we've been. That's for sure. He is telling you right there that the problem with this football team is the passing game. Okay? The passing game is the problem. And people are saying, well, you know, you're trying to figure out what Will Levis could do. And shout out to Paul Kaharski. A lot of people hate Paul Kaharski because he's a bit cantankerous. But in these moments, Paul Kaharski is going to ask the good questions. And he asked, if the whole theme of the season is to figure out what you have in Will Levis, then why don't you stop playing conservatively and let him throw it down the field? And Brian Callahan, again, read between the lines here. Brian Callahan said, there are definitely calls that go down the field that don't get thrown down the field. There was conservative nature on some of the runs because we were running the ball well. But yeah, we can just drop back and throw it down the field more. Sure. I don't know how to answer that. You know why Brian Callahan doesn't know how to answer that? Because the answer is, if I do that, then Levis is going to kill us. Will Levis is not playing good football. If I just drop back and have Will Levis throw it down the field, it's going to be more turnovers. That's the problem, is that Will Levis is not reading the defense well right now. He doesn't know what he's seeing. He's not getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He's not making accurate throws. He's not making great decisions. Someone else asked, Why not let Levis be like he was last year? And Brian Callahan said there's moments where you have to be aggressive at quarterback and you have to let go of a throw and let it rip. There's been a few of those, but again, we haven't had a lot of them either. There is probably a place for more of it. He can let it rip a little more often. We need to find more explosiveness in general if we want to throw the ball well. He is telling you that Will Levis is not taking those chances. It's not that Brian Callahan is not calling plays for Will Levis to throw the ball down the field. It's that Levis is not throwing them because Will Levis is scared right now. Will Levis is playing scared football. Brian Callahan is calling plays scared maybe, but after watching the tape, you see there are guys open downfield. There are route concepts that Brian Callahan is calling that are designed to take shots down the field, and Levis is not throwing them. Again, there are definitely calls that go down the field that don't get thrown down the field. And at that moment, I believe that Brian Callahan realized, oh, I'm saying too much. I'm saying too much because Brian Callahan doesn't want to just go out there and say, Will Levis is awful. Will Levis is the problem. I'm calling plays and Will Levis isn't executing. He can't just say that. You can't crush the players like that. That's not good coaching. You need to have those criticisms for the player in private and then be candid, not candid, but be coy about what you say in public. That's the way management should work, period. All right? You don't crush your employees in front of everybody else. That's not the way you do it. So read between the lines. Brian Callahan is telling you, I'm calling plays that go downfield. We got to be more explosive. Levis needs to let it rip more. We got to be more aggressive. It's Levis being scared to create. Levis's confidence is broken right now because of the dumb turnovers that he brought on himself early in the season, not Brian Callahan. And Levis doesn't want to create more turnovers and make himself look like more of a fool. So he's just not taking those chances. He's hesitating. He's just throwing it short when there's guys open downfield. I watched the tape. There are people open. And Levis is either hesitating, which leads to the pass not being on time, or he's just not throwing it at all because he's playing scared. So Callahan is calling plays scared, but it's because he knows that his quarterback is scared to let it rip. Will Levis is just not playing good quarterback right now. And that is the fundamental issue with the Titans offense because the offensive line has got better. They're running the ball with success and explosiveness. The defense is playing well. The special teams hasn't been good, but they haven't made any bizarre mistakes in recent weeks. The problem is Will Levis, not Brian Callahan. So no one is absolved of blame, but we got to be honest here. And also, I want to give credit to my guy, Zach Lyons, who covers the Titans as well. And he made a great point that Will Levis has regressed this year. But it's not like he's gotten worse. It's all of the bad things that he was doing last year finally caught up to him. He looked great in Atlanta. He looked great in Miami. But outside of those games, he had a ton of turnover-worthy plays that simply didn't convert to turnovers. He has regressed, but it's to the mean of what he is as a player. This is who he was at Kentucky. And last year, he got away with a lot of stuff because he got lucky. And this year, those things he's not getting away with anymore. We all have to come to terms with what's right in front of us. It's not Brian Callahan's fault. He could be better, but it's Will Levis is not good enough right now. Will he get better? I don't know. It's highly unlikely. But the problem with this team right now is Will Levis not playing high level enough of quarterback. Not the coach, not even the offensive line, not the defense. It's the quarterback. And this season was all about finding out what we have in Will Levis. This season was figuring out if Will Levis is the quarterback of the future. It's only been 5 games, but we're basically a third of the way through the season, and it looks like we have our answer, folks. It looks like we have our answer. That's all there is to it. So it's unfortunate. It isn't what you want to hear. And Paul Kaharski, again, did a great job in this press conference on Monday. He asked, all the short throws, the conservative game plan, doesn't that tell us you do already know what you think you have in Will Levis? Brian Callahan said, no, I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of things he can do better. There's things that I can do to help him be better. Around him can be better. We're really close. There's a lot of things that we do well. There's a lot of things we haven't quite gotten over the hump on when it comes to losing one-score games. Lost 3 of them now. We're in position to have a chance to win, and we haven't done it. That's not all a Will thing either, but to me, actions speak louder than words. And I think if you ask Brian Callahan candidly whether he thinks Will Levis is the answer, at this point, he would probably tell you no. So Brian Callahan isn't absolved of blame. But the real issue on this team right now, if you watch the film, is the quarterback play. That's all there is to it. So with that being said, there are other things to talk about. L'Jarius Sneed, the right tackle position. We're going to hit on those now. Before I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, period. They have the best features in the industry, and they just got a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets even easier and make sure that you get to see your favorite teams play live. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff, so you're only going to see incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Then you have the other features on Game Time that are already fantastic. You get a panoramic view from your seat, so you know what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. And all you have to do is toggle on the feature, and you're going to get all-in pricing. So the price that you see for your tickets is the price that you pay for your tickets. And that's super uncommon in the ticket buying industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about why I think it's absurd for people to act like Brian Callahan is on the hot seat. We talked about why Will Levis and his subpar play right now is the biggest issue that the Titans have. But now we got to talk about some other problems because L'Jarius Sneed played his worst game as a Tennessee Titan, one of the worst games you'll probably see all year at the cornerback position. Quite honestly, it was a disaster. Brian Callahan talked about that. And the right tackle position. We saw Leroy Watson step in for Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, and while the Titans didn't give up any sacks, we can't sit here and act like Leroy Watson played an excellent game. Before I get into it, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL. I'm the lead host of Locked On NFL. You get your Titans news here with me in under 30 minutes for free every day. Now get your NFL news with me in under 30 minutes every day for free as well over at Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But Brian Callahan talked about L'Jarius Sneed, and he was point blank honest about it. He said it was probably not his best game. And he said that L'Jarius Sneed would tell you that as well, that it was not a great performance from L'Jarius Sneed. But Brian Callahan did say that L'Jarius Sneed is still a very good player, and he loves having him on the team. He also admitted that the Titans are a physical defense. They play aggressive coverage. And when you play aggressive coverage, there's a cost of doing business. There are going to be some penalties. There are going to be, some people getting behind receivers because they were so physical at the line of scrimmage. But the reality is the Titans did fine other than third downs. They can't give up big plays and the penalties on third downs. That's where the Titans really got beat in critical situations. So I thought it was important that Brian Callahan went up there and admitted that L'Jarius Sneed did not play a good game. And by the way, over on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel, I am going to be looking at L'Jarius Sneed's bad day on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time. That's what I'm going to focus on Tuesday, and then I'm going to roll that over to Wednesday. We're going to look at Jarvis Brownlee Jr. I'm going to look at the run game for the Titans as well. But yeah, it was a bad performance by L'Jarius Sneed, but I think it was important for Brian Callahan to go out there and say, because L'Jarius Sneed ain't going anywhere, folks. I mean, the Titans gave him a lot of guaranteed money. He's not going anywhere. So, I don't know what to tell you if you're somebody who thinks the Titans should just cut everybody immediately. And that's not how this works. It's simply not how it works. But I like that Brian Callahan went up there and said, admittedly, was not a very good day for L'Jarius Sneed, but he's still a very good football player, and we're glad to have him. So I like that. Now, at the right tackle position, Leroy Watson came in for Nicholas Petit-Frere. And I know that everybody has been asking, begging, quite honestly, for anybody else to play right tackle other than NPF, even though Jalen Duncan did, and it was a disaster. But Brian Callahan was not impressed with Leroy Watson. And Watson did not have a great day. The Titans didn't give up any sacks, but Leroy Watson was not good in this game. And Brian Callahan said, quote, about Leroy Watson at right tackle, I thought he played okay. Wouldn't say that position is locked down. We'll see. We're trying to find an answer there. Haven't gotten the caliber of play required to have a right tackle that can function. And so far, results aren't where we need them to be. Leroy wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. And we will keep looking at it. To me, that goes back to what I've been saying to you guys for weeks now about right tackle. You could play Leroy Watson if you want. You can play Jalen Duncan. You can take somebody off someone else's practice squad. There is no good answer at right tackle right now. There is no good answer to starting right tackle in October. That's not the way this is going to work. Okay? There isn't. It's the same thing I said about edge rusher. And hey, granted, Arden Key played a decent game the last 2 weeks. He really did. But there is no answer to starting edge rusher in October. What are you going to do? Go out and make another big trade? Half of you guys are mad about the L'Jarius Sneed trade right now. And you want them to go out and trade for another veteran and pay him money? That doesn't make any sense. You need to draft and develop. That is how you answer these questions long term. Look at how the Titans answered left tackle with J.C. Latham. Draft and develop. That is the answer. Okay? So the Titans aren't going to find a starting quality right tackle in the middle of October. They're not going to find a starting quality edge rusher in the middle of October. There's nobody on the roster that's an answer. Same, I'll add quarterback to that. Mason Rudolph isn't the answer. Would you rather have, this is an honest question, would you rather have a top 3 pick with Will Levis playing the rest of the year? Or would you rather have 7 through 10 with Mason Rudolph and 2 more wins? Realistically, what helps the Tennessee Titans long term? What gets the Titans closer to a Super Bowl? Will Levis in a top 3 pick or Mason Rudolph in the 8th pick in the draft? What's better for the Titans? Answer that. Seriously, answer that. I think if you have any kind of head on your shoulders, the answer is obvious. So with that being said, though, that is going to do it for me today, folks. Again, I'm going to break down L'Jarius Sneed's bad day on Tuesday morning, but then I'm going to shift to the positive. We're going to look at Jarvis Brownlee Jr. We're going to look at the run game for the Titans. So make sure that you get subscribed over at the Tic Tac Titans film channel on YouTube as well. But as always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Make sure you thumbs up on the video, tighten up down in the chat, get subscribed, stay subscribed. And this was Locked On Titans.